Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, where we get to sit down and talk with interesting professional guitar players and related music industry experts. If you love playing guitar, stick around. You're in the right place. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber from Everyone Loves Guitar. I got a really cool guitar player to talk to today, David Wallace. He goes by David Wallace. He's from Shreveport, Louisiana, and you will hear him sound very Shreveport-like in a minute. He began playing guitar at the age of 9. In fact, now I'm sounding Southern. By the age of 15, he began playing live in small clubs on the Texas-Louisiana border, mostly classic rock and blues, right up my alley. His first true professional gig was the age of 23 for Tabby Thomas in Baton Rouge. I'm sure I didn't say that as nice as he will. At Tabby's Blues Box on North Boulevard. Tabby's a well-known Louisiana blues artist with most of his known records released in the early 60s. David backed up Tabby with his band and played as the house guitarist, backing anyone that came through the club. Man, that must have been a great experience.
It was interesting.
Yeah. He started the J.D. Wallace Band Trio around 1999, again playing mostly blues, Americana, and classic rock. Spent a few years playing on Bourbon Street in New Orleans about 4 days a week. Is that similar to Broadway in Nashville?
Yes, on a much larger scale.
Yeah.
Although Broadway's growing, man.
It's pretty big. I was there last year. It was monstrous. In 2006, David began working with Nashville Columbia Records recording artist Cole Deggs and The Lonesome. The first single released was I Got More, and it charted in the early 20s. The second single was The Girl Next Door. And in 2008, he began working with Nashville RCA recording artist Jake Owen. And David's worked as a lead guitarist for Jake Owen for the previous 10 years, and he's currently on tour. Man, I really appreciate your time. I know you just got off tour. Thanks for coming on the show.
Man, thank you. Yeah, dude, this is great.
So I didn't expect to talk about this, but David was telling me that he was literally just come off stage when they had the Vegas shooting, and he's kind enough to share some of his experiences with that. So I guess, let's start with wherever you want, man. Just pretend we're at the bar and I'm buying.
Yeah, well, hey, this is interesting because this is really aside from my wife and family, this is the first time I've really talked about it. I consider myself, obviously, like most of us, nobody in our organization was hurt, and as far as I know, nobody in Aldean's organization was hurt. And the only reason I'm mentioning our camp in Aldean's is we were the last two bands to play at when it happened. Actually, Aldean was on stage when it happened, but that is the Jake Owen band, was on stage right before Aldean, and we had literally walked off stage. And our bus was parked across the street from the festival. Just you had to go out the gates, the back gates, and then there was a bus yard across the street. So I left my wallet, my phone, anything, because we were going to play a show, and that stuff weighs me down. And then if I put it in my rack, then it's going to end up on an 18-wheeler, and that's happened before. Once that happens, you don't want that to happen again. So I really just walked off stage, and they had a little VIP sidebar, and a lot of friends that were playing like Big and Rich, and a lot of guys from then, they played just before us. So I'm just hanging out with my buddies. I think I got a vodka, which I'd kind of quit drinking that over the last few months. Kind of make clear your head, make you feel good. So I said, Vegas is a good opportunity to pick back up. And so I'm literally backstage getting a drink. We're getting ready. I was getting ready with some friends to go out in the crowd and catch Aldean, which, man, I am so thankful that did not come about. And here's the funny thing, the reason it didn't come about is because they brought some spring rolls backstage, and I was really hungry.
Holy smokes.
I know, it's crazy. So I went and got a couple spring rolls, and I finished them. I'm sitting there drinking, and they're like, hey, well, let's go check out the band. And about that time, actually before that happened, I'm sitting on a couch, and I hear it literally sounded like somebody set off a small pack of Black Cat firecrackers. And I even turned to the person sitting next to me and I said, are they doing fireworks? I mean, why would they do fireworks? And look, I've grown up with guns. This did not sound like a gun.
Why? What do you think that is?
Well, the reason I was told is because it was from so far away. I mean, that Mandalay Bay window that was being shot from was, from what I understand, like 400 yards away.
So this is like a high-powered rifle the guy was using.
They said he had, I don't know what the number is, but it's like maybe 16, 17 automatic weapons, maybe more. I can't remember what the last report is. And to be honest with you, I stopped following it because it was just kind of freaking me out.
Oh yeah, there's no upside to you to listen to that, not one little bit. It just freaked you out. Yeah.
You know, once it literally, and I don't want to make weird sound effects, but it's just da 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 da. It was little spurts like that, which it sounded like fire. It sounded like firecrackers, and it happened it literally happened a couple times before everybody started going, "What is that?" And then some of the security people came in and said, they actually said it was a power issue, that something with the power transformer was malfunctioning, which I'll be honest with you, I've heard power transformers explode. It sounded like that, but I didn't really question it. You know, a shooter's the last thing that entered my mind.
Because it's so out of context, you would never think about guns going on. It's like being guns at Disney World. It's just not. It's not enter your consciousness.
You know, it was so far from my mind. And when they actually learned that it was a shooter, it's like I was struggling to believe that this was happening. All right, one of Aldean's, if you look at the stage, if you're on the stage facing the crowd, okay, we were on the left side, which is, you know, stage left. So there was a band bus parked parallel to stage left. Thank God. They literally ushered us to the other side of that bus. In other words, the bus was between a group of people in the Mandalay Bay.
Right.
We were literally, as many people as they could fit were scrunched up along the bus. Some people were crawling under it. That bus was taking fire at some point. I had heard, you know, I'm not sure how much damage it sustained, but it definitely caught fire. You know, not flame fire, but caught gunfire. You could hear it hit. You could hear it hitting some of the work of the stage. So
while you're behind that bus, you hear it getting, you know.
Yes. You can hear ting 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 ping ping. You can hear it just going around.
So man, what's going through your mind, right? Like, what are you thinking, if you're thinking anything?
Honestly, I was a little shocked at how I was handling it. And it was interesting to see the different personalities. There was a lot of people crying. There's a lot of people freaking out. I am fortunate that I did not see anyone get hit. Although there was a lady next to me that I learned was hit in the foot, and I did see the blood. And at some point, somebody said, "Is there a medic? Is there anybody that has any medical training?" And a woman jumped up and said, "Hey, I'm a military nurse," and she took charge. They started asking for belts, scarves, for tourniquets. I handed over my belt. A couple of us did. They threw them. We handed them down. So I know there was a number of people that were injured.
This was after the fire stopped. They caught the guy?
Oh, this is while it's going on.
While it's going on.
And that's another thing I want to say. I know that the reports say 10 minutes, and maybe in my mind things slowed down when you're going through it, but I will say that firework was a lot longer than 10 minutes. I remember it was at least 15, 20, maybe more. At some point, I remember while this was happening, thinking to myself, why can't they get this guy? Because it literally sounded like people were all around us shooting. I had heard that there was somebody in the Mandalay Bay, and which was why we were stuck up along that bus, but I was also terrified that there were people coming to us because we would have been trapped.
Of course. How would you you know what? You have no cause to think otherwise.
No, and at some point there was, all right, beside the bus and the stage, which, you know, we were in between the stage and the bus, hovered up tightly to the bus. There was a big concrete, well, no, there was another little, like FEMA trailer looking thing. I say FEMA trailer because of Katrina, but it was a little trailer. And then behind it was a concrete piling in the stage. I went behind that trailer in the concrete piling, and there was a couple of us back there. And then all of a sudden, firing started again. And I swear it sounded like somebody was in front of the stage. And then I saw a herd of people come running under the stage. And that's when I squunched down next to that concrete piling, and then I started to freak out because I'm like, well, if somebody's coming under the stage, I'm a sitting duck.
Wait a minute. Hold on one second. What you were behind? What prompted you to leave the bus area though to go to this other place?
It was all within the same sheltered area.
Okay, so it was
I was no more exposed leaving the bus, going to that concrete piling. They were right next to each other. There was probably 10 feet between the back side of the bus and the front side of the trailer next to the stage. Okay. Then on the back side of the trailer was a concrete piling in the stage itself. But it was actually I don't know. I don't know what I was thinking. I was just trying to get away.
Wow. So
now, not after that, the shooting did stop, and everybody just held their positions. We probably sat there 30 minutes. I don't know. My time frames get really jumbled because
until you were waiting, like I guess, for somebody to say, "Hey, you can get out," or some sort of authority to say it was safe. Up
at that point, everybody was just hold your position. Hold your position. And there were a few people that were freaking out in the crowd. One guy in particular was just fighting. He wanted to get out, and everybody was saying, you can't get out. You will get shot. And I don't know why he wanted to leave. Maybe he had a loved one that was out in the front, and he didn't know what was going on.
So when you were sitting there, one of the things you said it was interesting to see people's reactions, and I'm always I've always tried to study people because I learn a lot, or just it's observing. What were some of the things that you noticed, or that maybe stuck out or struck you as odd, or just like there's no frame of reference how to work.
I was thoroughly impressed with the event staff and the security. I mean, they just really took charge. This one, and I say young guy, I think he was just an event staff, and he couldn't have been much more than mid to late 20s. I mean, this guy literally he spoke up, he spoke loud and clear, he addressed everybody, he said, everybody's gonna be fine, we're gonna be all right, everybody hold hands. And I mean, this guy just took charge, I was so proud of him.
That's awesome.
I remember thinking, dude, you go, and everybody, they listened, everybody held hands, and they were quiet. And 10 seconds later, I remember hearing this guy, overheard his conversation. He was calling his mom, telling her he loved her. It was just crazy. I mean, he was so strong. He just really rose to the occasion, and he was one of the event staff.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm trying to. He just really strong. I'm just very proud. Everybody, man. There was only a few that everybody was really just. There were those like me that were just. All I could think about, I got to get home. I got to get home safely to my kids, and there was a girl that she got separated from her group, and me and Scotty, who was our horn player, me and Scotty kind of stuck together. We helped her when they finally ushered us out. But everybody that I'm talking about here, the young man that was helping everybody, was the camp that was literally hunched up by the bus, and we were still, and we pretty much stayed there. I went back and forth to that concrete piling by the trailer, which was still safe under the cover of the bus. Just because at one point I was thinking about trying to make a run to the bus or get out of there, but I decided not to. Every time the firing started up, I had no idea where it was coming from.
Did you know where the bullets were going, like the proximity to you?
Not really. I could just hear it. You could hear it, tings here and there, and then you would hear shooting and not hear anything. It was just shooting ringing out in the nowhere.
So it was too random to even have a judgment call of, okay, I need to go this way, that way.
Yeah, and there were a lot of people around us talking. I mean, like I said, the different personality types. There was one guy, I don't know who he was, but I could hear him. He's, oh yeah, that's a 223, and it's being. There's always that guy.
There's always.
Yeah,
there's always that.
You got this guns expert over here that's rattling off what it is, and you got bullet
size.
A number of people crying, calling their parents or their loved ones, and I felt so stupid because while that was happening, I'm like, you know what? I don't even have my phone. And Scotty, I was telling you about that in our band, he did. And of course, it was almost an hour before I called my family. I just needed to make sure I was safe. We helped the girl that was with us get out of the area to a hotel, and we finally walked her out to the edge of the strip and got her cab. And
That's great.
She met up with her group, but the officers at the line there told us, well, if you can't stay here, but if you come out this way, we can't let you back in. And I'm like, well, how we can't stay? What does that mean? And he said, well, you need to go back to the safe zones, which are, I think, Hooters Casino and MGM were harboring people. So we went back to one of the casinos and just waited. But they wouldn't let you just wander around the strip, which sounded weird because there were a lot of people wandering the strip. But I think everybody was trying to figure out where to go, where a safe spot was.
So how many hours? When did you get out? How many after you got off stage? From the time you got off stage to the time you went out and accompanied that young lady back to get a cab, what was the time frame from that whole ordeal, to the best as you can remember?
Well, I would say it was probably, because we sat in the casino and watched the reports for a while. And I remember watching the first press conference where the sheriff got up and said that the shooter was dead. And once we heard that and they confirmed that there was only one shooter, that's when everybody was, trying to find rides home and get out. So I don't know what time that was. I would say it was probably 1 or 2 in the morning at least. Maybe somewhere around in that frame.
And you got off stage at what time?
We got off stage
ballpark
at, let me look at my master tour and I will tell you.
Yeah.
I'm not really sure. It's not going to let me go back.
Ballpark.
9:30, 10 o'clock maybe.
Okay, so 10 o'clock so this was at least a 3-hour ordeal.
Yeah, definitely. I'm not sure. I'm guessing that, let's say that Aldean went on it because he was the band that was playing when it happened, and he was at least in the middle of his set, if not toward the tail end.
Was he the last act going on? Oh, he was the headliner.
He was the headliner.
Wow.
We were right before he was. At some point, I remember Kurt and you probably interviewed Kurt and some of the guys from the band were huddled up right by that bus with us. So I'm guessing at that point the shooting was done because I remember somebody in their camp grabbing them, and they put them in a van and got them out of there.
Afterwards?
Yes. Yeah. Well, everybody was still hunched. We stayed hunched up by that bus for at least 30 minutes or so after the shooting had seemingly stopped. But the problem was nobody knew if it was going to start up again, so everybody was scared to move. And then I remember some people coming in, and all you heard was go, 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 everybody go, go. And then we started running. So we ran behind the stage, across the street, and into the bus yard where my bus was. But my bus was literally facing the fence, which could have taken fire from the shooter. And then, I don't know, something happened. Everybody panicked again and started hiding behind the buses on the bus yard. I didn't hear any shooting, and obviously from the timelines there was no shooting. I don't know what happened. But then SWAT came in from the one of the corner of those parking lots, and I had a choice. Either they were ushering people out or you could go to the bus. And me and Scotty actually chose to keep going because I didn't know if that bus was taking fire, if it could take fire. I kind of didn't want to be trapped on a bus.
Yeah.
So we kept going, and this young lady was with us, and then we ended up going to one of the safe zone casinos and sat there for an hour or so, watched the news. When that press conference was released and they said what had happened, we helped her get a cab. And then we just waited at that casino. And there were several tries throughout the morning, because we obviously didn't get any sleep, where we tried to get back to the bus, and they wouldn't let us in. We finally got back to the bus at 6 a.m, and we actually went a different route because there was this one roadblock that the police just would not let us in, and we tried so many times they started to recognize us, so we had to just find another route. And we did. We got in. We basically went in the backside of the parking lot the same way we left, which we had to because the whole festival area was a crime scene. They wouldn't let you in.
You know, there was a lot of people questioning how many shooters there were. Like, what was going through your mind? Did you, when you know, being someone that's been around guns and isn't scared of guns, did you think that was one person with a semi-automatic or with an automatic, or did you? Was it coming from
at least 3?
Oh, really?
At one point, I thought that there was a shooter high and there was a couple shooters on the ground.
Based on?
I thought they were surrounding us. At one point, it sounded like they were. It was hard to tell as far as what was from above us because we were sheltered by that bus. At one point, it sounded like they were coming from behind us. But when I moved to that little concrete piling by the stage, it sounded like they were in front of us. And that's when I decided to, you know what, I'm just going to stay here.
Yeah.
I'm not going to venture out until something stops. But the thought did cross my mind. All right, well, if they're moving, 2 things are going to happen. They're either going to find me and I'm going to get shot if I stay here, or they're going to catch him before that happens. And that's when I started to panic. I'm like, why can't they catch this guy? Because it sounded like it was kept going and going. And when it finally did stop and we stayed by that bus for a while, that's when somebody came over the radio and said that, you know, they weren't sure. They said, we believe most of the shooting's coming from the Mandalay Bay, and he's been detained. So, I don't...
Wow.
I'm not sure at that point, you know, I couldn't tell you when that was. But I do know that one of the things going through my head when they did usher us out was I was looking at rocks. I'm like, yeah, maybe I should grab something. I mean, if somebody's going to shoot at me, at least I could hit them with something.
Sure.
You just... But we ended up getting out of there, and it was 6 a.m. before we got back to the bus. And one of the most surreal things I saw on the way back was, I mean, I remember seeing blood trails on the sidewalk. I mean, you could see where it obviously looked like somebody blood was dripping and pooling on somebody's foot, because you could see the splotches every.
Was this when you came back at 6 a.m?
Back, and then you could actually see blood in the dirt of the parking lot.
What went through your mind when you saw that?
Just how massive it was, and how much people, you know, how many people were actually hurt. And you got to figure too, the initial reports, the first report was 2 dead and, you know, 20 or something, maybe 100. I don't remember the numbers. The numbers kept increasing. How many were injured? But then you learned later that, you know, it was almost, 60 dead, 58 dead, and hundreds injured. And a lot of those people were injured, of course shot, but a lot of them were injured just getting out, climbing fences, getting cut, getting trampled. I even heard a report, you know, there's a lot of vendors cooking burgers or whatever.
Sure.
There were people in mad rushes that were thrown into hot grills, you know, trying to find ways out. So people were burned, and man, it's just this awful worst case scenario.
Wow. So when you finally so 6 o'clock you made back to the bus, and the bus actually left at that point to go back to Nashville, or?
Shortly after that, we left probably the bus probably left around 8 a.m. So we had a flight at 10 o'clock in the morning, and the buses were able to leave that lot because it was across the street.
What was the bus ride to the airport like?
Well, that's the funny thing. We actually walked, because we had a couple of our guys that were in Mandalay Bay when this all went down, and they were ushered into the lower level and they were not allowed to leave. They were not actually able to leave till 6 or 7 in the morning. So they were on their way walking back to the bus, but they couldn't, which is a short walk, but they couldn't walk through the shooting area, which was a crime scene. So they had to walk completely around it. So it was a good, they were looking at a 30-something minute walk, and we thought we were going to miss our flight. So we started walking to the airport, which turned out to be a lot longer than we thought. So
it's not close to downtown, man.
So we ended up,
Vegas is,
we ended up
it's not far, but it's not a walk.
Everybody ended up, getting there on time, getting their flights, but nobody was thinking right.
So you carrying like luggage back with you, walking, like wheeling your luggage back?
Yeah, I'm walking down,
You're walking down the strip with your luggage to the airport?
Absolutely.
Man, what a shitty weekend.
It was unbelievable, And
but at that point, walking down the strip with your luggage to the airport probably wasn't even anything. You probably were like on autopilot at that point. It wasn't even like,
man, the whole town was just really rallied together. It was amazing to see. It was amazing to witness, everybody just really come together like that. And, at some point I remember thinking, this is going to be impossible, getting a cab. And there were a lot of guys flying by with pickup trucks. And I'm like, dude, just flag some dude down in a pickup truck. And dude, I promise you under the circumstances, they'll give us a ride. And we got lucky, got a cab. But Scotty, who was with me all night, they were going to catch another cab because we had too many people to get in one cab. And he said they did that. They did just that. They flagged some dude down, and he said, yeah, dude, hop in the back of the truck. So they just flagged some guy down, and he drove him to the airport.
And you had the whole Jake Owens band walking down the street.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, but after a night like that, like I said, that was probably not a big, not a big deal. At that point, every convention of normal has got to get thrown out the window.
Yeah, it does. And days later, when you start realizing all the things that people went through, and for me, all I could think of was, we did what we could, but we were scared like everybody else. I mean, all I could think of is not dying and not having my wife and kids learn that I'd dead in the street, because
sure.
That actually crossed my mind, because when I realized that, oh my God, I don't have my phone. I didn't even have my wallet. I'm like, if I die out here, they're not going to be able to, nobody's going to know who I am for probably who knows how long.
Yeah, sure.
But then when it's all over and you're reading the news and you're hearing all these reports of the people injured, I start feeling, God, maybe could I have done more to help people? Could I have done more? I mean, I remember
survivor's guilt to some extent.
I definitely had survivor's remorse, because you think, oh God, when they said go, I didn't think twice. I ran. You want to get the hell out of there. Everybody did it. All of us did. And I consider myself very fortunate, because I never actually saw anybody get hit. I never saw anybody on the ground injured, bleeding out. The only thing I saw was one lady that she was shot in her foot, and there was a number of people there seeing that she was taken care of. I mean, I hate to say it, but one of the safest places to be in that incident was where we were backstage.
Why do you hate to say that?
Well, because we were in a position where we could easily get out, and we had a lot of cover between the buses under the stage itself.
No, but that's a good thing. Why do you hate to say that? You shouldn't. I mean, that's.
Oh, no.
Thank goodness. That's a great thing. Somebody who's looking out for you, man.
It's just it always bothered me. All these people came to watch us play. And, somebody, they're dead now because they watched us play. It does mess with you a little bit.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm totally sure. Yeah, but you didn't cause it, and
of course not. And
you couldn't have fixed it either.
I can remember leaning up against that bus before the severity of what was happening really hit me. It was almost over before I realized, oh, we could die. And I think that's when I actually, at one point, moved by that trailer closer to the stage. And then I saw those people rush under the stage, and I'm like, maybe I should just chill out and stay here. And then I stayed put in that area until we rushed out.
I would be hard pressed to think you'd know how to act or what this is. So out of context. I mean, it's there's no frame of reference to draw on with that,
No.
When the first time you guys got together for a practice back home in Nashville, what was that like?
Well, we didn't actually. I mean, I saw everybody, of course, at the airport. And everybody at that point, I mean, it was weird. Just you're at the gate, and everybody, and a lot of Aldean's crew was on that same plane, and some of the band, and I got to see those guys and say, hey, I'm glad that you guys are all right. All of us are wandering around like, lost souls, all on the phone with our friends and relatives and whatever. Of course, our phones are going crazy. I mean, it took me days to catch up on text and making people say, hey, you okay? And then at the same time, over the next few days, we were off for like 2 weeks. So I didn't actually see everybody until this past weekend. But we all reached out to each other on the phone and just, hey, how's it going? Our management, Jake's organization, reached out to us and, hey, if there's any traumatic experiences that, if you're having problems with this, don't hold it in. Let's get you some help. A lot of people were concerned with people dealing with post-traumatic stress over it, which I was, as I was saying earlier, which is one of the reasons why you experience, I think, survivor's remorse. I never saw anything that I couldn't deal with. Now, if I had been in the front of that and I saw somebody shot and I had to help them get out, and let's say I heard stories of people dying in there, while somebody was trying to help them, I think that would really mess with me. I'd probably, that would have really messed me up. And I'm fortunate I didn't see anything like that, where people, I never saw leaving the area people on the ground that were obviously dead or anything like that. That too would have probably really stuck in my head. I was very fortunate.
What did your wife say when you came home? I mean, like physically, when you were finally back in the house with her?
Yeah, she was very concerned.
Emotional.
My daughter was crying. In fact, my daughter started crying when we went out on this last run because she didn't want me to leave.
Yeah, and she's how old? You said 18.
She's 12.
She's 12. Sorry.
Yeah, no. My son,
12 and 10. Yeah.
Yeah, boy. So my oldest is 13, fixing to be 14, then 12, then 2. So,
wow. How did he react? Your son, the older one, obviously.
He was, you can imagine. He was glad I was home, but then he was like, he's just kids, he's in disbelief, but he was glad I was okay. He hugged me, and he went to, play his video games. So, you know how that goes.
Yeah.
I expected that. I was a little boy.
It's probably better that he went and did that, to be honest with you, than, not, because at least he's able to go on and not be freaked out about it, when it comes down to it. Wow, man. Was there any sort of takeaway in like thought process, like in going through this experience? Was there something you not got out of it, but something, a different way of looking at things, or a different shift in thinking about something that you might not have thought about the same way?
Absolutely. Actually, absolutely. As a musician, as a guitar player, I mean, it's so funny. I mean, in we tend to take ourselves too serious, I guess is where I'm headed with this, okay? And you kind of have to if you want to survive in the music business, man. And there's no shortage of people. There's no shortage of players. There's no shortage of fantastic players, you know. I've always been a kid who loved to play guitar, so that's how I survived. I love what I do. And I always want to be the best. And you work so hard, and you try to put yourselves in these situations. I've been fortunate to play with national level act the way I have for a decade, and I want to keep doing it, you know. This shattered all that fear and anxiety of, hey, can I keep my gig? Can I get another gig? Can I stay out here? You know, I'm getting older. Instantly, you're like, it doesn't matter. I'm alive. I could have died, and who cares what kind of guitar player I am or who I played with? I'm dead.
Yeah.
Now I really did. I spent that next 2 weeks when I got home, painted my studio room, and I don't even think I picked up a guitar. I just needed to get away from it, you know. It really it put a lot of things in perspective, what you focus on, what you value.
You enjoyed living a little more.
Absolutely. And hanging out with your family. I mean, these are the things that are important. And you know, it's funny, but I watched that sentiment roll through our organization. I watched it, how it affect Jake, you know. And you know, and that was actually one of the things. We all had a meeting before that next show, and Jake said the same thing. And look, I've seen not near as traumatic as this, this shooting, but it's like because you were involved in it and because you witnessed it, you want things to slow down for a minute for everybody to process it. And when you're in the heat of it, when you're right after it happened and the news is all circling it, it kind of does that for you. You're getting through it. And then soon as it gets under control, you know, they're reporting about the next football game. And you're still trying to process what happened. It just feels like, well, I'm not ready to move on yet. And that's from me as a extremely fortunate survivor. I didn't see anybody get hit. I didn't have blood over my shirt from carrying somebody out, you know. I was protected during the shooting, and I got home safe, you know. I was very lucky. But imagine if you were shot, if you got to do 6 months of rehabilitation on your leg because you went to a concert and some jackass shot you, you know, or your friend, brother, mother, daughter died. I mean, this never ends for you, you know. And it's just weird how the world moves on. And Jake actually made that comment. It's just it's surreal, you know. But you know, you got to move on, I guess. But I can imagine how much more difficult it is for somebody in a more dire situation. You know, it will always stick with me. I'll always think about it. And I'll tell you what, we go to Vegas 2 or 3 times a year. My next trip to Vegas is I don't know how it's going to feel.
Do you think this will be a permanent? You know, I mean, a permanent change in your thought process, because it's easy for everybody, myself included, you know, when you experience something, you know, it's like the guy who has a heart attack, man, I'm quitting smoking and I'm going to stop eating crappy foods, you know, and I'm going to start walking. And then, you know, 3 months later, the scar's healed and he's back at McDonald's.
Oh yeah. It's like when I got drunk at the Foundation Room at that last Route 91 festival, and
I'll never drink again.
Oh yeah.
Lord, please, I promise. Just get me through this night, and I'll never. So, how do you what are you going to do, if anything?
I think this is going to help me as far as keep my anxiety levels, fear, stress, and in regards to a career, because you know everybody as you get older, you worry about, hey, can I keep this up, you know? And it really made me realize, you know, I'm always going to do what I need to do, as long as I've got my health, got my family, my loved ones. What really is there to complain about, you know? Yeah.
You know, one thing, like, I know as I've gotten older, time becomes more important to you.
Yeah.
And it was interesting. I watched this documentary. Are you a Pink Floyd fan by any chance?
Oh, huge. Yeah.
Check out The Making of Dark Side of the Moon if you get a chance. It's on Netflix. And so I watched it several years ago, and that's, my number one album ever. I could listen to that, if it's my time to end, that's probably what I want to hear, as I'm going wherever I'm going. And Roger Waters said something there, and I found it was very profound. It was along this lines. He said, most people live their lives thinking that you are preparing for something. As soon as I get this done, then I'll get that. Once I have this, and he said it's such a big mistake, because he said you're born at dot, and that's it. You got to start living.
Yeah.
And that I didn't have a particularly good childhood, so I was never sort of aware of stuff like that, hey man, relax, be happy. And when I heard that, it was around the time I turned 50, and I was like, man, I'm done. I've got to focus more on being happy, because he's 100% right. What the hell am I? And I'm a type A, in my businesses or whatever, and I'm always wanting to, not to make more money, just to maximize, kind of like what you're talking about. You always want to be the best, whether it's playing guitar or running a business or whatever you're doing. And I felt that was a major turning point for me. And I have to say, in all honesty, that I have done a pretty good job of enjoying myself after that, and I was very grateful to hear that at the time, and hopefully maybe at some point in time, that's how you'll be able to look back at this thing like, man, thank God I got out, but more importantly, thank God I took this as a valuable, and I made that change, and I took the pressure off myself, and all of a sudden nothing changed, but I was a lot happier. So I think happiness is underrated.
That's so it's funny. My wife always tells me, she says, you're in charge of your own happiness.
Yeah.
Or another, she's fond of saying, is never put your happiness in someone else's hands. In other words, or something else's hands. Like I've always been guilty of, I'm real happy when I have a great gig, or I played a bunch of killer TV shows and just killed it, or I did a great session, or whatever. Yeah. It makes me feel happy because I nailed it. Well, it's up to me to be happy even if I fell flat on my face. And that's hard for me to do, because I'll dwell on it.
Yeah, it's hard for anybody who's driven type A. It's hard to do.
Yeah.
It's hard to do.
This experience has, I say that now, and I'm going to do everything I can to hold on to it, because when you really, it doesn't take me long to think about that experience to realize how it felt, being in that position and thinking this could be it, When I think about that, all those stress and worries do go away, because you realize, being alive and being happy that's what we're all here for.
Yeah, right. That's why we're put here, not to hit the rock.
And it's funny because kind of like the very name of your podcast here, Everybody Loves Guitar. That's why I played guitar. I didn't start playing. I know some people say, oh, well, I played guitar because I wanted to meet girls. I was 9 years old when I started to play guitar. That was the last thing on my mind. I just liked it. I love playing, man. I like sounds. And I find as I get older, I'm gravitating more toward that. So I work on my own amps. I work on my own guitars. I love, I can get obsessive about it, but at the core of it, I've got to learn to truly enjoy it, even when it's not right. And that's, when you're a professional, okay, like I've done a lot of shows like Kimmel, Fallon, before Leno went off there. We were fortunate enough to do Leno, Conan, Ellen. Pretty much with a major artist, at some point you're going to do every TV show. If your singles are there and your publicist is working, you're going to do these shows. And I always thought growing up, oh man, it's going to be so cool when you do those shows, because you're going to be on top of your game and you're going to be playing everything you want. Man, it couldn't be further from the truth. When you do those shows, it's rush. There's hardly any sound check. and they're more focused on the artist you're working for, so they don't care how your guitar sounds.
Right.
And you got to get a quick ear mix and your own backline that's usually worn out. So it's amazing how on those shows it's just like, just get through it, you know, and do the best you can.
And a bunch of guys told me it's freezing.
Those studios are absolutely freezing. That's one of the things that I love about. I've done Kimmel probably 4, maybe 5 times. I've done a couple of performances in the studio, in the little studio room, which those are always freezing. And then I've done at least 2 of the outdoor stage. Well, when we do the outdoor stage, we do about 5 songs, and they only televise the 1.
Oh, okay.
That is the absolute best because it's like a concert, and there's an audience. They bring a small audience in.
Sure.
So that one's awesome. But yeah, those TV studios are absolutely freezing.
That's what a couple of guys have told me, that they're froze to death in there, man. Hey, this is Craig Garber, and I just wanted to take this opportunity to offer a tremendously sincere thanks to David Wallace for sharing this obviously difficult experience he went through with me. He's an awesome guy, a very genuine, kind human being, and he happens to be an incredible guitar player. And as you heard, he's someone who's really put his heart and soul into perfecting his playing since he was 9 years old. We're going to have David's regular interview coming up soon here on the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast and on everyonelovesguitar.com. And thank you again for listening. And I'm hoping you'll support David by checking him out and attending a Jake Owen concert the next time Jake Owen comes rolling up through your town. We hope you enjoyed this show. If you did, subscribe to the Everyone Loves Guitar podcast, and you can do this online at everyonelovesguitar.com or on iTunes. And if you like the show, please leave us a 5-star positive review. The more 5-star reviews we get, the higher our show ranks, and higher rankings mean we get to continue speaking with cool, interesting guests on our show. We'll see you on the next episode, and until then, keep playing your guitar and have fun making music.